name is Raymond Dugue, and black people, I am at your service. Thank you. Okay, there is a lot I'd like to say, but let's start. My role at the UNIA is I'm the High Chancellor. That means that I'm the custodian of the funds. It's like the person who is the Chief Financial Officer, the person who is in charge with the Treasury and the Controller. What is the UNIA? I submit to you, the UNIA is the only solution that has ever worked, and I'm going to prove it today, and it's the only solution that can ever work, and I'm going to tell you why. The UNIA was established on Sunday, July 20th, 1914, in Kingston, Jamaica, by a man named Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And behind me is a saying that Mr. Garvey, he says a lot of things, a lot of things. But one of the things he says is the world is run on bluff. What that means is, it means several things, but what it means is for it to exist, what is right is made to be wrong. What is wrong is made to be right. Keep that in mind. Next. He says it so best. He says, the great white man has succeeded in subduing the world by forcing everybody to think his way, from his God to his fireside. He has given to the world, from his Bible to his yellow newspaper sheet, a literature that establishes his right and sovereignty to the disadvantage of the rest of the human race. Okay, this is the reality. Instead of the reading, let me explain it to you. For all of this to exist, and it's global. It's not just now. It's always been global. You know, earlier on, the brother said, in Mount Vernon, our people, our brethren are in trouble. But guess what? I was raised in South Ozone Park in Queens. The same situation exists there. I've been to Kingston, Jamaica. The same situation exists there. I've been to Brooklyn in New York. It exists there. Harlem, New York. Port-au-Prince, Haiti, Accra in Ghana, Monrovia in Liberia. Guess what? There is no African that is exempt. There is no place on the planet that we control our destiny, that we have respect, and in that we believe a better day is coming. This is universal. And this is why Mr. Garvey came up with the term Universal Negro Improvement Association. He knew we were Africans, but that's what we were calling ourselves, so he went along with it. But then he adds an African Communities League. Listen to this. There's no African on the planet that escapes this. None. Look at a guy like me. When I came in, one of my members, before I do that, I have to recognize some of the Division 432 members. Madam President, will you please rise? This is Sister Delali Haliga. Brother Akil Oliver, please rise. He is our attorney. Sister Rosemary Champagne, please rise. Brother Kabbalah, please rise. And of course, Brother Binuti, please rise. And lastly, Sister Devlin from our Brooklyn division, please rise. No matter what we do, some of us, get this, some of us have been led the bluff, have been given the bluff. All you gotta do, all you gotta do is get an education, go to school, wear fancy, nice suit like I'm wearing, and you've made it. But ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, I still work for them. I'm nothing but a glorified servant. All of us, nothing has changed. The relationship 300, 400, 500 years ago to Europeans and aliens is the same. We serve their interests. Nothing has changed. And hardly no African on the planet escapes that. All Africans are conditioned to serve as servants to Europeans and aliens. We're programmed for that, no matter what. You know, you go to a fancy name school, you get a fancy job, you're not creating any wealth for our benefit. You make their community stronger while our community is made weaker. Because if we looked at ourselves as a nation, and this is following Mr. Garvey, there is a trade imbalance. They take all our resources and our wealth and take it away from us, and we remain destitute. Like the brother said about some of these Negroes, when they get a fancy job, when they get some education, what do? Leave the neighborhood? Send their kids to those schools? Some of them even marry aliens. Some of them want to speak like them, be like them. Every one of us, we're conditioned for that. Because we're all different, we react differently. Some of us hate ourselves so much, we bleach our skins. We change our hairstyle. We change our features. We do all this nonsense. This system cannot exist unless we are induced to hate ourselves. That's the bottom line. And because we're all different, we react differently. But it doesn't exist. For example, when it's induced, when you tell our melanated brothers, light skin is better, people with different hair is better, they get oppressed. But what else do? Not just suffer depression, not just internalize it, not just hate their own kids or their own selves, not only denigrate themselves. Guess what else they do? Which is the most important thing. They go out and spend money. They have to go out and buy things, change their hairstyle, change their feet. All of this, it's functional. It's economically functional. All of this. The reason why they destroyed segregation, because it's functional. That's simple as that. They realized we're losing out on so much money. Man, they had to tell them, they had to tell some of their people, stop that. We can make money because once we integrate, all of their black businesses go away. They all go away and we're going to induce that. Everything, the televisions, the newspapers, everything is geared towards us hating ourselves. As simple as that. There's no other solution. Everything about Africa and Africans must be denigrated. The pigmentation, the melanin, the features, the hairstyles, everything. All of these young sisters, all these young brothers, and even the fashions that they induce us to go for, all of that is for our own destruction. But in addition to that, it's functional. It keeps them employed. It makes them stronger. It's simple as that. Mr. Garvey said it. Dr. Amos Wilson said it, and it still holds true. Dr. Francis Cress Welsing said it. Dr. Marimba Ani says it. The African cannot be a slave and an African at the same time. We have to be un-African to accept this. Because once we open our eyes, I wouldn't do this. Like the young brother said, once he became conscious, he left the street scene. He said, this is nonsense. I'm working for their benefit to kill our people. As you think, so shall you be. If you believe you are trash, you will act it. If you believe you are unimportant, if you believe you are not relevant, you will act it. What is the solution? Over 100 years ago, this black man, he was born in Jamaica. Actually, he was born in St. Ann's Bay, August 17, 1887. Check this out. 1883, 4 years before he was born, there was a survey done in Jamaica. Out of 250,000 black people in Jamaica, only 21,000 could read and write. That's 8.7%. 1865, at the end of chattel slavery in the United States of America, 10% of black people could read and write. So in a sense, Jamaica, 20 years later, 18 years later, was in worse shape than we were after the end of chattel slavery. But get this, he's born into a family where his father's a brick mason. But more importantly, the father loves to read. Black people, if that's the only thing you encourage your children, if that's the only thing you say and do is to read? As per Mr. Garvey, you should read and read and read and read. And then you read and read and read and read. And then you read and read and read and read. You never stop reading. As per Mr. Garvey, we should read at least 3 hours per day and at least 1 book per week. Because what happens when you read? Well, you learn the vocabulary. You start to expand your mind. You see things differently. As per Mr. Garvey, a reading man and woman is a ready man and woman, but a writing man and woman is exact. There's some things you read, it just blows your mind. You say, wow, I never looked at it that way. And the only way you're going to be able to write is to read. And not just read nonsense, but read everything. Read, because we invented it. You've heard of paper? That's from papyrus. Black man, black woman, you invented it. Nobody on the planet was reading. You invented reading. You invented writing because of the papyrus. That's what it's named for. Mr. Garvey was born St. Anne's Bay. And his father loved to read, believe it or not. And his father had a library. At the age of 1901, Mr. Garvey's got to stop attending school. Finances. And these were not the most affluent people. These were regular, basic, poor people like us. The father was a brick mason. The mother used to work in Caucasian homes, cleaning the homes. That's what she was. But she also did farming on the side. 1901, Garvey's 14. He's got to leave school. He's 14. So his father says, okay, why don't you apprentice to become a printer? He gets apprenticed to a printer named Alfred Burroughs. Alfred Burroughs is going to be a guy he's going to call Cap Burroughs. Get this. Burroughs has got even a bigger library. So what does Mr. Garvey do? He reads and reads and reads. He's learned so much about our people. So Garvey's gotten this well. 1903, in the North Coast, by the way, St. Anne's Parish is in the North Coast, and St. Anne's Bay is the capital of St. Anne's Parish. There's a huge hurricane, wipes out all of the crops. There's no future in St. Anne. So what does he do? He heads off to Kingston, the big time. So Garvey gets there. He's a little poor guy, didn't know much. But because he read, he immersed himself in what was going on. In fact, he's going to become the youngest foreman printer in the history of Jamaica. Because until he comes along, all of the foreman printers were either British or Canadian. European, alien. Garvey's so good because he knows how to read, and he can edit, and he can typeset. He's got it. Anyway, in 1907, while in Kingston, there is a huge earthquake. January 14, 1907, the Kingston earthquake. Get this. Every building is damaged in Kingston. In fact, 85% of all of the buildings are destroyed. Not too dissimilar than what happened in Barbuda last week. 95% of the buildings in Barbuda have been destroyed. The island doesn't exist anymore. Gone. So the people in Jamaica go to the British government because it's still a colony. Okay, bail us out. And he says, whoa. British government says, no, this is a colony. We only rape and pillage resources. We don't put anything in it. It's one way. Take out for the mother country, England. So Garvey, who's read a lot, says, whoa. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And to secure those rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. You allow the government to exist. If the government does not secure those rights, does not provide services, it's not a government. It's not a government. That's the history of this country. They weren't being provided their services, taking care of themselves. What has changed from now and 100 years ago. This is why Mr. Garvey established it. Nothing has changed. Nothing will ever change. A system can only exist by us being induced to hate ourselves. When we hate ourselves, we don't love ourselves. We don't work with each other. We fight, we cuss, we kill each other. But it's functional. That's why it exists. It's simple as that. Let me say this. We can say a lot. You know, they have their DNA. It's in their DNA. They will always be cruel and evil. Maybe. Maybe they can't reproduce. Maybe. Maybe they have penis envy of the black man. Maybe. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? They do what they do because they can. They have the power. And we don't have the power to prevent that. And the basis of all power is organization. Mr. Garvey said it best. The greatest weapon used against the Negro is disorganization. And organization is based on reading, writing, and calculating, built on self-reliance economics. That's the solution. That's what race first is. What does Mr. Garvey say? This is part of it. Take down the pictures of white women from your walls and elevate your own women into that place of honor. Black women, for the most part, they're the burden bearers of the race. And mothers, give your children dolls that look like them to play with. And they will learn and care for their own children and not neglect them. Last month in July, I spent a week in Haiti, IET. There's not one place, every home I went to had a picture of a Jesus, and not a regular Caucasian, but like a, what do you call, Norwegian looking Jesus. I said, come on, even if he existed, he couldn't have looked like that. It's not possible. I mean, basic things like, really? So Jesus must have looked like that? I mean, Mary must have looked like that? All of these people must have looked like that. That's what this is. And last month, I was in Jamaica. We were visiting. We resurrected UNIA in Jamaica. And on the billboards of the schools, every sign they have has Caucasian children. So I said, there are no Caucasian children in here. Can we at least eliminate these pictures? They said, you're right. See, these are the small things, but they carry a lot of weight. If for 500 years this is all you see, what are you going to believe? Because this is, when Mr. Garvey makes his decision, he says to himself, where is the black man's kingdom? Where's his king? Where's his president? Where's army, navy, and men of big affairs? Where's his government? He says, I don't see it. A lot of us, we say the same thing. Don't go to the black organization. Don't go to the black community. Don't go to a black school. Don't join this black group. We walk away. But what does Garvey say? Nah, he says, I will help you to make it. Because Garvey understands everybody else does race first. All Chinese race first. All Arabs race first. All Asians race first. All Italians race first. All Ashkenazi Jew race first. All Hasidim race first. I mean, if Europe is for the Europeans, if Asia is for the Asians, then it must be Africa for the Africans. Those at home and those abroad. It's simple as that. We don't have to recreate anything. Garvey already did it. I'm going to show you how it exists. Men and women, this is what Garvey says. God made us as his perfect creation. He made no mistake when he made us black with kinky hair. It is divine purpose for us to live in natural habitat, the tropical zones of the earth. There's no mystery why we are from those warm areas. That's where civilization started. You gotta have warm areas, you gotta have rivers to have civilization. Forget the white man's battle that he made us in the night and forgot to paint us white. That we were brought here against our will is just a natural process of the strong enslaving the weak. Simple as that. As I said, it's about power. They can do what they do because they can. They have the power. We can't prevent it because we don't have the power to prevent it. We were weak at that point. What do evil people who are strong do. They enslave the weak. I have no problems with that. I'm down with it. Great. But our solution is race first. We don't have time for this. We don't have time for this. We have outgrown slavery, but our minds are still enslaved to the thinking of the European master race. Simple as that. Everything we do, it's global. The biggest problem in Ghana is skin bleaching. I was in Jamaica, that's another big problem. But let me say this. The problem is not skin bleaching. The problem is not us killing ourselves. The problem is we're induced to that, and every one of us reacts differently, depending upon your exposure, your experience, your level of education. But it's all the same. It can't exist without it. Now take these kinks out of your mind, instead out of your hair. You are capable of all that is common of men of other races. So let us start now to build big businesses, commerce and industry, and eventually a nation of our own to protect us wherever we choose to live. See, a lot of times people thought Garvey was talking about back to Africa. No, that's only part of it. You must have a strong base. Once you have a strong base, you can go anywhere. I mean, let me give you an example. China, the cheap seats in the baseball fields, you know, right where the home run is. What do they call that? The blooper seats. You know, as soon as you hit the home run, the really cheap seats. They're the cheapest in the stadium. Not nosebleed. I can't recall the name, but guess what they used to be called? Chinese seats. Once China became a power, nobody can call that Chinese seats. As simple as that. A beggar race can never be respected. Stop begging for jobs and create your own. Look around you, and wherever you see the need for factories and business, supply it. Stop begging for a chance. Make it yourself. Teach your children that they are direct descendants of the greatest and proudest race who ever peopled the earth. This is a cartoon from 1922, the Negro World newspapers. Look what Mr. Garvey says. We're at the crossroads. Do we go back to slavery? Do we go to mental paralysis, political death, race suicide? The only solution that's ever existed. Nationhood. You have to look at yourself as a nation. Not like I'm from Mount Vernon. Not like I'm from Haiti. I'm from Brooklyn. I'm from Jamaica. I'm from the continent. That's what they want you to believe. You know what they tell us here in the United States? The Caucasians tell us, yo, my man, you're next. That's what they tell us. Don't worry, you're next. They go to the Caribbean. They tell the Caribbean folks, look, my man, you know, with your Caribbean heritage, your strong work ethic, you're best. You're good. What do they go tell the brothers in the continent? My brothers, you are the originals. The others don't count. But all of it is to keep us divided. Because when it's time to stand up, all Europeans stand for race first. They will always do that. This is the synopsis of Mr. Garvey. Marcus Garvey built a mass organization, actually a government, that went beyond mere civil rights and political agitation, protests, I can't read this, and based itself upon a definitive, well-thought-out program that would lead to the total emancipation of the race from foreign dominion. And that answers it best. It's not just back to Africa. It's not just red, black, and green. It's not just up you mighty race. It's the total solution. And I'm going to prove it to you. And I want you to join me. Here, this is what Mr. Garvey is able to do. Get this. You ready for this? Mr. Garvey at one time had 12 million members. 12 million. In New York City, Mr. Garvey had 40,000 members. Now, why is that important? Once you've got members, you've got membership dues. Once you have membership dues, you've got money. You can do your economics. The first building Mr. Garvey ever bought was through union dues. I'm sorry, brother, did you say building? Yeah, I said buildings. I'm going to show you this. These are all the president generals of the UNIA. Mr. Garvey was the first one. There were 9 since. And now the current, the 10th successor to Mr. Garvey is the Honorable Michael R. Duncan. We're from Division 432. It's the Marcus Garvey Carlos Cook's division. And one more time, this is the Madam President. Please rise, Madam President. Garvey says this best. You know, you think about it. Nobody was saying these things. Garvey comes along and he says, the black skin is not a badge of shame, but rather a glorious symbol of national greatness. This is what binds us all, that melanin. Nobody else has it. Nobody. And that's what's protected us all these years. This statement, every time you see another nation on the African continent becoming independent, you know that Marcus Garvey is alive. Had it not been for Mr. Garvey and the foundations laid by him, you would find no independent nations in the Caribbean today. All of this is as a result of Mr. Garvey. Does anybody know who said this? This man, Malcolm X, who was a UNIA baby. His parents were UNIA officers. This is the preamble to the UNIA. Basically, you know what it does? It says positive things. You know, we don't have time to denounce, to denigrate people. We're trying to build up ourselves. We got to upbuild this race. Basically, it's a positive confraternity. It's social. It's everything you want in a people. And the motto is one God, one aim, one destiny. And look what it says. Therefore, let justice be done to all mankind, realizing that if the strong oppresses the weak, and that's what happened. They were stronger at the time. And the strong oppresses the weak. That's what's happened. It's not because we're cursed. It's not because we're doomed. It's not because we're black. It's not because we're ugly. Because they were the stronger. Simple as that. As I said about Mr. Garvey, I said 21, so it's actually 22,000. So 8.8% was literate. Okay, and this is January 14, 1907. The earthquake of Kingston destroys every building is damaged, and it destroyed 85% of the buildings. So when they asked the government to bail them out, the government would bail them out. What is special about that is it was at that time, after 1907, Mr. Garvey realized, whoa, what's going on in here? I'm in a situation that it's looking dreadful and dreary. Mr. Garvey is going to meet this man. His name is Dr. J. Robert Love. Dr. J. Robert Love was born in the Bahamas, became a pastor, was in Georgia when he ran into Bishop Henry McNeil Turner. Bishop McNeil Turner tells him, my brother, throw away the image of the likeness of the white man's God and listen to liberty which speaks in all our hearts. So he said, you mean I've been praising the wrong God all this time? He said, yes, my brother. So, and he clears him up and he says, you know what? I'm ready to salvage people, not just their souls, but their health. So J. Robert Love, he wasn't a doctor yet. He travels to Buffalo. He's going to become the first black graduate of a Buffalo medical school. After he graduates medical school, he decides he's going to devote all of his time and energies to go to Haiti, Haiti. Because Haiti was established on January 1, 1804 as a refuge for all African people. Anybody black, as long as you step foot on the island, you become free, but most importantly, you become a citizen. Vous êtes citoyen. You are a citizen. This was a refuge created for all black people. But what had happened was they assassinated Dessalines and they became nothing but sellout Uncle Tom Negroes. So when Dr. J. Robert Love goes to Haiti, he is dismayed. You've got 1% of the population, mulattoes, running the country. And all of the dark-skinned black lackeys, oh yes, master, oh yes, master. So he said, why would Dessalines establish it if we're right back to this? So he becomes a part of the government. He becomes a minister of health. And he spends about 10 years. He runs for office. He's defeated, but he's asked to leave. He's exiled. So upon his exile, he says, send me to Kingston. Who does he meet in Kingston? Marcus Mosiah Garvey. He is going to be Mr. Garvey's first tutor. In fact, when Mr. Garvey says the black skin is not a badge of shame, but rather a glorious symbol of national greatness, that's J. Robert Love. Because J. Robert Love despised what he had seen in Haiti. how the mulattoes had crushed everything, how they had made black people feel so inferior. I mean, this was sad. All of the books were white kids. All of the teachings were white. This was a black country. So that statement that Garvey says, that's Robert Love. He says, this is wrong. Anyway, this man, his name is Ernest Hogan. 1896, Ernest Hogan is going to hear a song. It says that all Johns look alike. So he changes the song to all coons look alike. You know, like your modern day rapper denigrating our women, denigrating our people. By the way, he's going to become a millionaire. This guy's making a ton of money. So that's 1896. By 1900, these Caucasians hearing the song say, whoa, we can make more money. So they come up with a song. Every race has a flag but the coon. 1900. Mr. Garvey will be working in England, 1913, at African Times and Orient Review when he reads that article. 1913, Mr. Garvey said, if that's the only thing I do to black people, I will give you a flag. Not just a flag, but a purpose, a government, and a reason to exist. So this is because of that man. All coons look alike to me, Ernest Hogan. And these are the Europeans who are going to make big money out of every race has a flag, but the coon. Okay, watch this. You've got the Amsterdam News. You've got the Courier, the Crisis, the Crusader, the Defender, the Emancipator, the Guardian, and the Whip. These are all black newspapers. These were the top black newspapers around that time. What's the problem? Not one of them calls themselves black. You couldn't even tell they were black. So Garvey comes along and he says, cut the bluff. That's why he says the world is run on bluff. Cut it. Says he creates the Negro World newspaper that's on his birthday, August 17, 1918. That newspaper is going to single-handedly demolish colonialism. It's going to be so powerful that it is outlawed in every British colony. This newspaper, to give you an idea, the Defender out in Chicago is generally considered the largest subscription newspaper. They never had more than 160,000 per week. On a bad week, Garvey's getting 500,000. On a bad week. But let's look closely at the newspaper. Let's look at it, the Negro World. Look at the logo. Look at the logo. Look at that logo. It's Khafre on the face of the Sphinx. The reason why Mr. Garvey puts Khafre, the face of the Sphinx, its true name is Herakamet. The reason why he puts that is for two reasons. The number one reason, which is not the most important, is this. He was letting us know, you come from a great society. You built these. You built this. Before anybody could walk, before anybody could write, you built it. All of this you built, not just the Sphinx, but all of the pyramids, everything you built. You are great people. Don't believe the bluff. You did this. But you know why? The most important reason why he says that, why he puts that, is the pyramid behind the Sphinx, Khafre's pyramid. To build that pyramid, that was done in the 5th dynasty. The first pyramid was built in the 3rd dynasty. By the time that pyramid is built, you would have to know that relationship. It's called the Pythagorean theorem, where two legs of a right triangle. A right triangle is any triangle that has a 90-degree angle. The two legs plus the longest leg opposite the 90 degrees, which we call the hypotenuse, exists as such. A squared, which is one leg, plus B squared, the second leg, must equal C squared. But what's the problem with that? That's generally called the Pythagorean theorem. What's the problem with that? Pythagoras is not born until 495 BCE. That one is built 2,500 BCE. Meaning that pyramid is built, completed, more than 2,000 years before Pythagoras is born. So he couldn't have done it. Stop. See, you got to exist before you're being given credit for doing something. But here it is. Ladies and gentlemen, watch this. This is the solution that Mr. Garvey came up with, and it's our solution. The reason why we have kids in the street, the reason why they drop down their pants, the reason why our marriages don't work, the reason why our kids are not being taught is this. This is the billion-dollar question. This is the only one who's ever come up with that solution. Mr. Garvey puts that Sphinx on that newspaper because it answered the billion-dollar question. Get this. You've got Khafre. In Giza, you've got 3 large pyramids of Khufu, the father, Khafre, the son, and Menkaure, the grandson. They each have a pyramid, plus Khafre's got the Sphinx. There are 3 other pyramids. There's 6 pyramids plus the Sphinx. Get this. You ready for this? The first pyramid, the pyramid of Khufu, the father, the one they call the Great Pyramid. It's 481 feet high, 756 feet each base. There are 4 bases. And underground there's another 28 feet. You're talking 48 stories above ground, 2 stories below ground. It took 400,000 men working 6 days a week, 20 years to build. The other pyramids of Khafre and Menkaure, it took 400,000 men working 6 days a week for 35 years. Garvey asked himself the billion-dollar question. Not how did they do it. He doesn't care about the technology. But where's the money coming from? How do you build it? You need 400,000 men, and these are not just regular men. These are tradesmen. These are skilled professionals. In fact, skilled professionals rule the day. After the leader, you had skilled professionals. After the leader, you had the high priest. After the high priest was skilled professionals. The country cannot exist without them. Where can you get that type of money to pay these people? And they need to be paid. There's no way you're going to get 400,000 people working 6 days a week for 20 years and not pay them. It's not possible. You'd have a revolution. The answer is economics. Ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet became great, not because of the god they worshipped, not because of the good looks of the people, and they were good looking because they're African, but because they were the first global economy. They had the first standing army. Nobody had ever even heard of that. Ladies and gentlemen, once Mr. Garvey realized that was the solution, that's the solution to all our problems. You've got culture, economics, and politics. A lot of people tell you culture is most important. It is important because it keeps us grounded. We're connected. Politics controls and enforces the rules. But who pays for everything? Economics. This is what's happened. This is why we fall short. With integration, all we want to do is be consumers. All we want to do is buy. Oh, I got to get the latest LeBron James jersey or Stephen Curry. I mean, Stephen Curry's making $20 million a year. Who cares about his shirt? But we got to get it. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason why ancient Egypt could be so strong, could be able to afford all of these, of this, what they call the delta, that triangular shape that empties into the Mediterranean. That was the most valuable real estate on the planet. It produced enough food to feed the whole continent. There was so much surplus. With that surplus, they bartered and traded and built the nation. It always comes down to economics. This is why. Now, you want to stop the kids hanging out in the street? Build factories. Build schools. You build it. No, not go beg the man to do it for you. Not go do a 501c3. You build it. You build it. Because then they won't be on the street. You build the association. You build a park. You build a community center. That's what Koreans, that's what Ashkenazi, that's what Arabs have done. Even if Professor Smalls believes that the US government is giving them money, but there's one thing that they have that we don't have. They don't suffer from self-hatred. Because they understand we need to come together, because if we don't, we fail. You know, Kansas, what's the other? There's a fried chicken, not Kansas, not Kentucky, the other one. Kennedy. Does anybody know who owns Kennedy Fried Chicken? It's Afghanistan. Once they came over the country during the Afghanistan war, they all pulled their resources. Every Kennedy Fried Chicken is owned by Afghanistan. Every one of them. Even if they're struggling, but they're self-employed. They don't have to go beg and borrow. That's why we're missing. Mr. Garvey answered that question. Until then, Mr. Garvey actually thought he could build a movement spending his own money. After he became foreman printer, and when they struck after the earthquake, he was fired. Eventually met Dr. J. Robert Love. He was inspired. He starts a newspaper. He quits his job. The newspaper only does 3 editions because he keeps running out of money. So then he comes up with this great idea, like a lot of immigrants. Let me leave the country I'm from. Let me go to another country. I know it's much better because there's nothing but gold in the streets. You know, there's nothing but manna from the heavens. So I'm just going to take advantage, make money, and send it back home. So where does he do? He goes to Costa Rica. He gets there. He starts a newspaper called La Nación. Same thing happens. He runs out of business. And in fact, he's trying to agitate black people. But they're hesitant. They're not willing to listen. And at the same time, the government of United Kingdom is telling him, you got to stop this. This is subversive. So before he's arrested, he goes to Panama. What does he see in Panama? Building of the Panama Canal. Same thing. Black people at the bottom. He goes to Venezuela. He goes to Colombia. He goes to Peru. He goes to Nicaragua. He goes to Honduras. Everywhere he goes, what does he see? Black people at the bottom. Everywhere, black people at the bottom. So he runs out of money again. Goes back to Jamaica. We're talking now January 1912. He left in 1910, comes back January 1912. His sister is going to London to be a nanny for a black physician. Mr. Garvey had, Mr. and Mrs. Garvey, his parents, had 11 children. Only 2 lived to adulthood. Mr. Garvey, and his oldest sister, Indiana. Indiana is going to be a nanny for a black physician who, must go back home to the motherland. Even though he's black, but he's got to go back to England. And so he needs a nanny. Indiana goes with him. So Garvey tags along. While in Europe, he visits England, Scotland, Wales, France, Spain, Hungary, Germany, Scotland, Ireland. He sees something much different. He says, whoa, this is a government. This government is taking care of its subjects. And he also sees black people at the bottom. Nothing changes. Right now, in 2017, if you go to Jamaica, what will you see? Black people at the bottom. Go to Brooklyn, what do you see? Go to Mount Vernon, what do you see? Go to Harlem, what do you see? There's no place on the planet where we're not at the bottom. Nothing has changed, and it will not change until we pool our resources, come together, and express ourselves as race first. Because everybody else is doing it. Those Afghanistan people, they pulled their resources, they created Kennedy Fried Chicken. They do that. Why can't we do that? Because we hate ourselves, but throw that out. Continue. Anyway, just to give you an idea of the research Mr. Garvey did, he had to go to the British Museum to do research. It's at the British Museum that he learns about Khufu, Khafre, Menkaure, about the Great Sphinx, the Great Pyramid, the Sphinx. Anyway, so for him to engage in research in those days, because British Museum wasn't that big, the reading and the research room and the exhibits were all together. Now they're three separate locations. The exhibits, the reading, the research room. You have to be a PhD person or PhD candidate to be able to do research now. But in those days, you could do it. So Mr. Garvey uses Dugue Muhammad Ali, who's the editor of the African Times and Orient Review, to be able to do research. And this is where Mr. Garvey learns all of this about the pyramids. When Mr. Garvey realizes it, see, he didn't care about the technology, how to do it, but how do you fund it? Because money was always a problem for Garvey. He keeps running out of money. In fact, when he comes in the United States, March 24th, 1916, Mr. Garvey's got equivalent of $1.10 in his pocket. Money is a really big problem. Just to show you how on top of the game Mr. Garvey was, this is an editorial from November 1922 in the Negro World newspaper. In November 1922, Howard Carter is going to mistakenly, well, he says he discovered it, but it's not true. He's going to discover the tomb of Tutankhamun. So the Negro World writes an editorial, don't even think about it. That was a black man in a black country, and do not try to fool us. So as early as 1922, Garvey understood everything. I'm going to go by this quickly. The reason why I mentioned that, Mr. Garvey, believe it or not, also had an audience with Howard Budge. Howard Budge is the European scholar who stole the papyrus of Ani from the Cairo Museum and who translated the Book of the Dead and wrote all those books. So meaning, what's my point, and how do we know that? On page 9 of the Message to the People, Mr. Garvey writes a tribute to a man. He says he knew a man who was dirt poor, but he read and read and read and studied, and when he died, he was a scholar that kings and queens attended his funeral. That was Howard Budge. Meaning, Garvey, he did the research, the reading, the writing, all of that. Okay, then get this, to show you why you have to believe in yourself. We're talking 1914. Garvey travels to Europe in 1912. He's leaving Europe June 28, 1914. At that time, only 2 places on the continent were so-called liberated. And that's a stretch. On the eastern part of Africa was Ethiopia. On the western part is Liberia. But Liberia was created as a haven for the raping of the white master to the black slave woman. Because the first rulers, leaders of Liberia were all mulattoes. In fact, until Samuel Doe comes along, you had a distinction between what you call the Americo-Liberians and the indigenous population. So it was another slave state under a different name. You've got only 2 places on the continent, plus the place I was born, IET. But as of July 28, 1915, IET would be subjugated and occupied for 19 years by the U.S. Marines, where they destroyed the treasury, raped and violated every woman that they could touch. But anyway, you're talking 2 places. Garvey looks at it. You see, when you believe in yourself, Garvey said, the whole world is against me. The world has made being black a crime. I hope to make it a virtue. Up, you mighty race. Accomplish what you will. Get this, only 2 places free. Garvey said, it doesn't matter. As long as we believe in ourselves, as long as we pool our resources, come together, believe in race first. Anyway, these are all the editors of the Negro World newspaper. The man top right, you should know, he's from this area, actually from Yonkers. His name is John Edward Bruce, possibly the finest writer other than Mr. Garvey that we've ever produced. John Edward Bruce, he's from Yonkers, but he's the man. If not for John Edward Bruce, Mr. Garvey doesn't become Mr. Garvey. John Edward Bruce is incredibly important to the UNIA. In fact, Mr. Garvey is going to make him a Knight of the Nile Order. Yeah. So, John Edward Bruce, nobody's bigger than he is. Top left-hand corner, John Edward Bruce. Okay, let me read to you. John Edward Bruce, W.A. Domingo, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, William Ferris. Oh, that's my guy. I'll tell you about William Ferris. William Ferris has got 2 degrees. Undergrad from Harvard, master's from Yale. This is a top guy. This is what he wears when he's taking out the garbage. This is the top guy. He was with Dr. Dubois. The first time he heard Garvey, he said, throw that away, man. I'm down with you. So he's going to become the 2nd editor behind John Edward Bruce. And I'll tell you why William Ferris is important. When Warren G. Harding died, he was the 29th president of the United States of America. And he died while in San Francisco. They were shipping the body by train back to United States, back to Washington. So every country was going to involve itself in the parade, in his eulogy. So Garvey says to Ferris, handle it. Ferris was suave. I mean, the guy was super smooth. I mean, he wore suits all the time. He spoke the king's language. He was the man. So they send Ferris. Ferris puts a decal on the UNIA car. And then they drive, looking all dignitary with their top hats. The white policeman in Washington, D.C. comes up to him and says, yes. And he says, I'm from the country of Uganda. He said, go right ahead, sir. Meaning he carried himself like royalty. You would not believe that he's not some dignitary, but that's William Ferris. That's the man. Okay, Dugue Muhammad Ali. Mr. Garvey's second most important tutor. After Dr. J. Robert Love is Dugue Muhammad Ali. Anytime you recite one God, one name, one destiny, that's Dugue Muhammad. He taught that to Mr. Garvey. Next to him, that mulatto-looking guy, that's T. Thomas Fortune. Even though he's mulatto, but he's down with us. He's one of us. He's the one who's going to write the rebuttal to the Rudyard Kipling's poem, The White Man's Burden. He denounces him. In fact, he was Booker T. Washington's personal autobiographer. Everything Booker T. Washington wrote, he was the guest author. He wrote. The guy can write. He had a falling out with Booker T. Washington. He thought Mr. Washington was too much of an accommodationist. So when Garvey comes along, he says, sign me up. Okay. Next to him is Hubert Herbert Harrison. This is possibly the finest intellectual out of Harlem that we've ever produced who was not race first. He was a socialist. He believed, no, there's no distinction in the races. We're all one people, and it's socialism, and the workers will resolve it. So that's not going to work. And finally is J.A. Rogers. All of these people worked for the Negro World newspaper at one time. Okay, actually, I've got to tell you something. Okay. August 13, 1920. The Declaration of the Rights of the Negro Peoples of the World is ratified. Article 38, it says that we must become a state within a state. Article 11 says never ever use the N-word. That's Article 11. Article 11, never ever use the N-word. And they spelled it out. Article 13 says Europe for the Europeans, Asia for the Asians, and Africa for the Africans, those at home and abroad. Article 39 establishes this. The red, black, and green. Please clap for it. Article 40 establishes the universal Ethiopian anthem, because if you're a government, you need a flag and you need an anthem. But Article 49 states we have an obligation to teach black history to our people. Mr. Garvey had 2 full pages in the Negro World saying black history. And then in August 13, 1920, that's Article 49. That's 1920. Now, all of you are intelligent and you can do math, right? We can all do math, yes? Okay. Dr. Carter G. Woodson establishes Negro History Week, February 7th, 1926. Whoa. Let's do the math. Garvey, as late as 1920 and as early as 1918, was doing black history. And Carter G. Woodson worked for Garvey at the Negro World. Come on, do the math. There's no way Dr. Carter G. Woodson could have established Negro History Week. It's plagiarism. And why does he do it in 1926, not 1925? I'll tell you why. 1925, February 8th, Mr. Garvey is incarcerated at Atlanta Federal Penitentiary. So he wasn't going to come out in February 1925 because Garveyism would have taken him out. So he waits a year later when he knows Garvey's securely established in prison. So he makes it February 1926. What's my point, ladies and gentlemen? Garveyism, UNIA has always been the solution. It can only be the solution. I'm going to prove it to you. Yeah. We did this. Brother Benutu was there. We did the Garvey's Footsteps tour. All of the buildings that the UNIA owned. And this is advertisement in the newspaper to support your businesses. See, Garvey's not pulling any games. He says, you support our business because it's for the race. We will hire our own people. If you want us to do more, you got to patronize us. If you want us to build factories, you got to spend with us. And if it requires a sacrifice, should you do it? I mean, Ashkenazi only buy from Ashkenazi. Everybody knows they can go in the black community and make money. Because we're fools. We hate ourselves. They know it. And it works. It's functional. This is the Declaration of the Rights of Negro Peoples of the World. There are 12 complaints and 54 articles. Right here, this is the most famous picture. This is where Mr. Garvey says, I do hereby declare you a government. And these are the people who signed the Declaration of the Rights of Negro Peoples of the World. All of them. Okay, I gotta educate you. This is Article 9 of the Constitution of May 20th, 1805 of the Republic of Haiti, where I was born. Article 9 states, yon bon haïtien, c'est yon bon papa, li yon bon petit, li yon bon mari, et puis ça qui est important, parce que tout l'autre bagaille, fuck li yon bon soldat. A good Haitian, when he says Haitian, they mean African. A good African is one who is a good son, a good husband, a good child, and most important, more than anything else, is someone who defends the revolution, a good soldier. That's your role. That's Article 9. There it is, Article 39, the red, black, and green, Article 40, and here is Article 40, the anthem, which we'll skip. This is the article. Okay, let's look at the legacies of Garveyism. You know, we cannot allow our black daughters to play with white dolls. I mean, not only is it stupid, oppressive, self-hating, but it's costing money. We're giving money back to these. I mean, look at it. We're paying to be oppressed. It's like we're so stupid. We're going to give you money so you can oppress us and make us hate ourselves more. Like, we're going to go to the movies to denigrate ourselves. Don't do it. Simple as that. I mean, you just don't do it. Legacies of Garveyism. Listen, Mr. Garvey owned a car. By the way, he never drove it. By the way, this is the same car that William Ferris drove to Washington and pulled it off. This is from the 1924 convention. Okay, the building on the right is the Black Star Line. The building on the left is the UNIA headquarters. More pictures. I mean, look at this. We're not talking now. We're talking 100 years ago. I mean, you would think this was like, no, you can't be. Black people walking around like this? All of this? Look at all the buildings and all the businesses we own. And did this. The UNIA had 2 planes. They had 2 planes. And this is, what's his name, William Fauntleroy, called the Black Eagle. He fought for Ethiopia. By the way, that airplane is the UNIA's that he took. This is Bessie Coleman, the first black female aviator. She came to the 1922 convention. Everybody wanted to be UNIA. You got 12 million members. Now, here is the answer. How are we going to clean up our kids, our youth, our adults? Let's do it. Grocery store number 1, 47 West 135th Street. By the way, that currently is part of Harlem Hospital. Grocery store number 2, 646 Lenox Avenue at 142nd Street. That's a part of the big, what do you call those things where the army stays? The Armory, yes. Grocery store number 3, 552 Lenox Avenue. That's at 135th Street. That's also part of Harlem Hospital. Universal Restaurant number 1, 114 West 138th Street. That's currently a part of Abyssinian Baptist Church. Universal Restaurant number 2, 75 West 135th Street. That's a part of Harlem Hospital now. Universal Printing House, 2305 7th Avenue on 135th Street. It's currently a hair designer salon. Universal Mart Industries, 62 West 142nd Street. It's currently part of the Armory. The Black Dolls Factory, 36 and 38 West 135th Street. That's a part of a project housing. The UNIA head office, that's 56 West 135th Street. And then the Booker T. Washington University and Whitley Hotel, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13 West 136th Street. That's a part of Harlem Hospital now. Nobody asked me the question, where did Garvey get all this money to buy all these buildings? Oh, let me guess. Maybe he went and begged. Maybe he went to some corporations and said, I'm going to start a 501c3. You're going to match it. You're going to give me money. I don't think so. Maybe he went on the street, begged all these nice Caucasians who have money on Fifth Avenue, the robber barons. Oh, help me, poor, I'm a poor black man. I need help. Not really. Mr. Garvey, and that's the essence of UNIA. You don't beg. You don't borrow. You do it yourself. Don't rely on Hillary. Bernie's not going to help you. Trump is not going to help you. You will help yourself. It doesn't matter who's running. Nothing changes. We have to be induced to hate ourselves. Nothing will ever change. Where did Garvey get all this money from? From this. Garvey started the Negro Factories Corporation. 1919, 1920. He sold the shares for $5. Back then, do you know what black people were making? Between 25 and 40 cents per day. If they made 40 cents per day, in 1 week they made $2. Where are they getting the $5 from? In a month, they made $8. But their take home is probably $5. But then they've got to pay rent, they've got to buy food, they've got to buy accessories. Where are these black people getting the money from? It's called sacrifice. Ashkenazi do it, Arabs do it, Afghanistans do it, Asians do it, Koreans do it. Because none of them hate themselves. Because they understand you're only as strong as your weakest link. One or two Negroes may be doing well. You know, you've got Michael Jordan, you've got, what's the sister with the, Oprah? Yeah, they're doing well. But the vast majority of us are poor. Now you say to yourself, but brother, we're poor individually. Together, ladies and gentlemen, let me give you some numbers. We in the United States of America, we make up 45 million black people. All of Africa, 1.1 billion black people. We in these United States, we spent in 2016 almost $1.3 trillion. If that were a separate government, a separate economy, we'd be the 15th largest on the planet. Let me give you an idea. The Russian Federation, with the second largest number of nuclear weapons and nuclear warhead, the Russian Federation, the one that Putin runs, the Russian Federation, they spent, their GNP, gross national product, they made $1.286 trillion last year. We spend more than the Russian Federation makes. We spend more than the Russian Federation makes, and they are the second largest nuclear country on the planet. We don't have any excuses. Oh, you know, why are our kids not doing anything? You know, they're running around. But what have we done? We're all at fault here. Of course we are. Especially people like me, the ones who should know better. They should have been doing better. But what did we do? You know, once integration, they allowed people like me to go into corporation, make tons of money. What did I do? I didn't do what I should have done. So all the people that were doing it are the ones, you know, you've got those who are able and those who are willing. Many times those who are willing are unable. Those who are able are unwilling. Because we hate ourselves. All of that stops. That's what we're here for. Now I'm going to tell you what we did. Mr. Garvey, get this. And one more thing about Africa. 1.1 billion. We don't even make up 4% of the population of Africa. Africa's total GNP was 2.1 trillion. We're not even 4% of Africa. We spent 60% of what Africa makes. Come on. Mr. Garvey realized it then, and it's true today. If the black world is going to be free, it must be us in the United States. We're the best off. As bad as it is here, as bad as Mount Vernon is, as bad as Brooklyn, Queens, South Carolina, as Ferguson, Missouri, as Philando Castilla in Minneapolis, as bad as that is, we're the best off. We are the best, and everybody on the planet knows it except us. We're stupid. So what's the solution? Mr. Garvey gave it to us. Get off of your butt and pull your resources. Race first. Race first. Once you create the economics, all your problems go away. With the economics, you build your own schools. You teach your own people. You build, you create, you develop your factories. That's how everybody has done it. Race first. Then like the brother said, some Negroes will say, but why are you talking bad about Caucasians? Well, we're not saying anything. All we're saying is race first. Race first for you, Mr. European. Race first for you, Mr. Asian. And of course, race first for you, Mr. African. That's the only solution. With that, Mr. Garvey, get this. Get this. Now you're saying, that's how he bought those buildings? Yes, that's how he bought those buildings. Well, the very first building, the 114 West 138th Street, that was membership dues. I mean, when you have 40,000 members, that's money. That's money. So Garvey's sitting on a ton of money. He said, what am I, stupid? Let me buy the first building. Then he said, we can replicate this. And why does he do the Negro Factories Corporation? To build and operate factories in the big industrial centers of the U.S., Central America, West Indies, and Africa. Garvey was thinking global. That's why he gets the ship. The ship is not just for travel, to transport goods. He really thought this through, and I'm going to show you what we do. The Black Dolls, that was making money. Here it is. I don't make it up. This is in the Black Dolls factory. This was the very first building, 114 West 138th Street. Just to give you an idea, that building could hold 6,000 people. Wow. On a bad day, Garvey gets 3,000. The Abyssinian Baptist Church, which takes over that building, it's not until 1943 that the membership of Abyssinian Baptist Church exceeds 3,000. Garvey was bigger than the church. And these are the headquarters. This is that whole building. When we did the tour, all of that is owned by Harlem Hospital. In fact, they should really call the Harlem Hospital the Garvey Hospital. They've got so many of the Garvey buildings. Okay, but get this. The Negro Factories Corporation wasn't even his greatest economic achievement. This was Black Star Line. There it is. Okay, this is, no. This is not the first ship. This is the SS Titanic. I'm going to show you what Race First is about. The SS Titanic was the biggest, strongest, most powerful ship ever created. April 14, 1912, off the coast of Newfoundland, it sunk. Do you know who owned the SS Titanic? The White Star Line. So when Garvey buys his ships, what is he going to call it? The Black Star Line. He said, I'm down with it. The White House, the White Star Line, the Black Star Line. As simple as that. Race first. Race first for you, race first for me. You want the Black House? I'll give it to you. Please applaud for the SS Yarmouth, Mr. Garvey's first ship. He's going to rechristen it to the SS Frederick Douglass. The second vessel is called the SS Shadyside. That was for the executives. You know, people like me that dress up in the nice suits. Because, you know, you can't hang out with everybody. I mean, you know that, right, brother? I mean, come on. If you dress like this, he's got to take care of the executives, right? Okay. This was the SS Kanawha, the third ship. He's going to rename it to the SS Antonio Maceo. See, with Garvey, everything is about image. You know, it's got a regular Caucasian name, change it to a black name. I mean, that's what they do. All of these rivers in Africa, they give it their names. Lake Victoria, come on. You know, Zambezi Falls, no, it's not happening that way. Yeah. Anyway, the Kanawha, I'm going to skip that because I need to show you this. Here it is. Here's the solution. Are you ready for this? My sister, watch this. The very first ship Mr. Garvey purchased, he purchased it for $165,000. He raised that money in 3 months. In fact, he raised $600,000 in 3 months. Now you're probably wondering, black people had that type of money in 1919 under those conditions with segregation, Jim Crow, racism, KKK? They had that money. Yes, we do. Yes, we will. We always have had it. He initially capitalized the Black Star Line Corporation for $500,000. In 3 months, he reaches $600,000. He said, what am I, stupid? Raise it up. He recapitalizes it to $10 million. But let me talk to you about the first ship, the $165,000. What does that mean? If you use a 5% cost of living adjustment, now you're probably wondering, Brother Dugue, why are you using 5%? Well, number one, I said so. But number two, this is what I do for a living. I do cost of living adjustments. I project ultimate costs, ultimate claims for insurance companies. I set reserves. So all day I'm looking at the interest rates. I'm looking at the cycles, everything. That's what I do every day of the year. There's not a day I don't do that. Would I sign off on 5%? Yes, I would. In fact, I sign off at 3.5% every day. 5% is nothing. And just to tell you the difference, the U.S. government, for those of you that are 65, the U.S. government will give you 8% per year to delay your full-term Social Security benefits. If you believe you're going to live forever, don't take it. 8% per year. In 4 years, that's 32% on top of it. You'll be a rich man. If you believe you're going to live forever. But see, that's risk. That's a gamble. I get that. The average inflation rate from 1916 to 2016 is 3.3%. If you take out the excessive deflation years, 1927, 28, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, that 3.3 becomes 4.1%. 4.1% is the true average inflation rate. The government is going to give you a risky 8%. So I'll sign off on 5%. I do it all the time. Let's say you believe me, the 5%. What is $165,000 using a 5% cost of living adjustment brings you in 2016? $18.743 million. That's the type of money Garvey had. That's the type of money you have. You just don't know it because we're stupid. That's the first ship. What about the second ships? The SS Shady signed the SS Kanawha together to buy it and rebuild it and renovate it. That's another $200,000. Using that same 5% cost of living adjustment. That's $22.719 million. 3 ships, Garvey's got $40 million in today's dollars. He had it. You have it. But it's not pooled. It's not race first. We don't love ourselves. What can you do with that type of money? You can build and develop factories. You can employ our youth. And the ones who are wearing, who want to be homosexual prostitutes with their pants down, once you create jobs, they'll stop doing it because they won't get a job. That's the easiest way. They'll stop it. Everything will stop once you build and create and develop your community. But it involves sacrifice. Somebody's got to sacrifice. Somebody's got to pool the resources. That's all that it is. Mr. Garvey came up with this great idea. Why don't we create a corporation? That's all we got to do. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Brother Benuti, can you pass out the palm cards? You know I've got a big game. We went and did the same thing Mr. Garvey did. I said, hold it. Mr. Garvey did it. We're no geniuses. All we did was we read the books, Philosophy and Opinions of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, Race First, and Message to the People, Course in African Philosophy. How did Mr. Garvey do it? He said, let's start a corporation. We can do the same. We can do the same. And then let me one more thing, brothers and sisters. The Negro, oh, by the way, the Black Star Line, it was capitalized at $10 million. Had that been achieved, which it wasn't, that would have been $1.1 billion. The Negro Factories Corporation, that was capitalized at $1 million, that was reached. You know what it is in today's dollars? Brothers and sisters, pay attention, pay attention. You know what $1 million then is? $113 million. That's how Garvey went out and bought all those buildings. Garvey had tons of money. You gave it to him because he believed in race first. And Mr. Garvey didn't even care for his health. All he ever cared about is uplift this race. All I want is racial uplift and self-reliance. That will resolve all our problems. See, we're looking at symptoms. We're not looking at the cause. Cause is we have no power. We have no power because we're not organized. We're not organized because we don't read, write, and calculate, and we don't perform self-reliance economics. That's all you got to do. It solves all your problems. In fact, I'm going to tell you the biggest secret the military doesn't tell you. Before you can become a military power, you have to become an economic power. There's no country who's a military power that's not economically strong. Doesn't happen. You got to build your economics. Before you can get an army, you got to build economics. So, you want to go out and take on the cops. You don't need to do that. Create your community. Those cops will kiss your feet because they know you will control it. Simple as that. That's the only way we see it. Anyway, let's continue. UNIA meeting. Yeah, this is the Abyssinian Baptist Church. Just to tell you, just give you an idea. I tell you, Garvey had 12 million members. At the time that Garvey had 12 million members, the NAACP never had more than 90,000. In its history, the most they've ever had is 650,000. So when people tell you, well, the NAACP was a vital organization, they got 650,000. Garvey's got 12 million. Do the math. There's no comparison here. Simple as that. And Garvey could generate money. They have to beg oilies and Caucasians to give us money. Garvey exposed the hypocrisy. Like, black people are wondering, well, let me see. Garvey's got money. He's got factories. He's giving me a job. He's got newspapers. These guys are begging, and they don't even have anything. Why would I be stupid enough to join them? So this is why they have to destroy Garvey and the movement. Simple as that. I mean, he's got the funds. He's got the African legions, the defensive arm, and he's got the self-reliance economics. He's not kissing, begging. Here, more pictures. More pictures. This is incredible. This is incredible. Look at this. I mean, you filled your nation. They had their own marching band. The military had their own marching band. See, when you have 12 million members, you can do that. Look, I'm not making this up. His name was Jack Jones, Agent 800. His only role was to infiltrate and destabilize the government. It's UNIA. The FBI had previous black informants and black agents, but these fools didn't even get a W-2. I mean, at least this guy got a W-2. I mean, they were just paid and, they couldn't even report it as income. He actually got a W-2 and he can file income tax. Look at this. Okay, now some of you are saying, okay, brother, now what you got to say? You talk a big game. You say UNIA. You talk red, black, and green. This is all bluff. Show me the proof. Some of you say, I'm from Missouri. Show it to me, black man. I'll show it to you. Right here. Right here. You see this warehouse? 13205 Merrick Boulevard, inside of Belknap Street. It has 15,000 square feet. What's in it? We call it The Rock, Restaurant Owners Corp. Federation of African, Caribbean, and American Restaurant Owners Corp. We issued shares at $600 each. Whoa, 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 whoa. 600, my brother. That's a lot of money. Okay, maybe. How much is this iPhone? $822. Okay, but hold it. Remember that $5 that I told you Garvey got you to pay for his corporation? Well, if you use that same 5% cost of living adjustment, guess what it is? $600. We didn't even come up with anything original. We're plagiarists. I plead guilty. We didn't even think of anything different. All we said is, Garvey, now let me give you the theory behind it. Get this. Every black restaurant in New York City, and I suspect the same for Mount Vernon. I can't say the truth, but for New York City, every black restaurant in New York City, for them to remain in business, they spend between $8,000 and $20,000 per week on dry goods, meats, produce, and vegetables. We're not talking about rentals or salaries, just the food. $8,000 to $20,000. I said, what? $8,000 to $20,000 per week? I said, are you talking Jamaican dollars? No, U.S. currency reserve. Real money. You forgive me. I'm biased. Real money. $8,000 to $20,000? I said, really? I said, well, I'm not that good at math. Let's use round numbers. Why don't we say $10,000? Between 8 and 20, 10,000. Let's say we can identify 100 restaurants. That's not true. We've identified 178. But I like round numbers. So I said, let me get this. $10,000 per week times 100 restaurants times 52 weeks. That's $52 million. Where are they getting it? Only one place, black people. Because while we go to Chinese and other restaurants, only black people come to black restaurants. Only black people come to black restaurants. All this multiculturalism, if you see it, show it to me. I've never seen it. I know that we only go to black restaurants. Nobody else goes there. So I said to myself, those 100 restaurants spend $52 million. My God, where are they getting it? From us. We spend it. So we can't say we don't have the money. It's there. It's there. So I said, whoa, but who are they spending it with? Bingo. Who is supplying? Who is distributing it? Who's providing it? You already know the answer. Not us. Koreans, Arabs, aliens, Ashkenazi, Chinese. So I said, what would Mr. Garvey do? Would Mr. Garvey be a punk and walk out? Or would he create a stock corporation? What do you think we did? The FACA ROC, we started issuing, we went live March 26, 2016 at the Schomburg. We had a big event. We raised $250,000 that day. Up to date, we've raised $1.1 million. We've created, in Queens, we created 9 jobs. In Jamaica, we've created 5 jobs. Why? Most of our foods come from Jamaica. Most of the black restaurants are Jamaican. So he said, that's why I was in Jamaica last month. That's why I went to IET the month before. I said, okay, let's go meet our brethren. The plan is, wherever black people are, we're going to establish it. Why? Because we can create jobs. So what's your role? Your role is, it's a duty. You must patronize and support The Rock. But now you're going to say, whoa, but it's in Queens, I'm in Mount Vernon. My answer to you is, so what? So what? If there was a discount in Englewood Cliffs, you'd be going. If there was a discount in New Haven, you'd be going. If it was to go to some party to shake your body and throw yourself naked, we'd go. So do this. This is the only solution. We had to lease the building because we didn't raise enough. Our goal was to issue 10,000 shares to raise $6 million. We raised $1.1 million. And where did we get the money from? Did we go to those upscale, educated, bourgeois, sophisticated black people? Yes, we did. Did they give us the money? No, they didn't. Who gave us the money? The same black people that supported Mr. Garvey, poor black folk like you and me. We can't worry about entertainers and the rich and the bourgeois. They're not coming. They're not coming. They're not coming. They can't come because they would go against their master. I'm done with it. You go, the master's treating you, go with him. But we go for race first. So we'll deal with that. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm imploring you, every one of you, number one, you have to reactivate your citizenship. Whoa, what do you mean? Everybody that's got melanin is a member of the UNIA. There are only 2 types of members, active and inactive. You got to reactivate your membership. When's the next meeting, brother? Tomorrow, 4 p.m., in Harlem at the National Black Theater, 2031 5th Avenue. 4 p.m., 2031 at 125th Street. My brother, When are you going to open one in Mount Vernon? When you join. When you join, I'll open it. I mean, you got to join for me to bring you in. Come to the meeting tomorrow, 4 p.m., 2031 Fifth Avenue at 125th Street, National Black Theater. How much is membership? Well, number one, you shouldn't ask. It's a duty. It's a duty. But if you must, it's $56 a year. I mean, come on. It's $3 a month. 3 times 12 is 36, plus $10 tax and $10 first-time registration. I mean, for all the money we spend on nonsense, I mean, come on, please. Give me another story. You know, some people tell me I don't have the money. We never reject people because of money. But if you have the money, it's just not right. It's self-hatred to continue shaking us down. We never reject people for money, never. But how can we buy and build and develop without money? So you're going to have to pay your dues. So first thing you got to do is reactivate your membership. Second thing you must do is you must patronize the Rock. But you're saying, I live all the way in Mount Vernon. Rosemary, where do you live? Devlin, where do you live? They get there. They get there by public transport. We got people from New Jersey. We even got brothers coming from Connecticut. They came there last Sunday. They just bought $300 because they couldn't believe it. They asked us, how much debt do you guys have? It's self-reliance. We put all the money in, all of it. Every time I walked into the warehouse, I wrote a check. I couldn't believe it. I mean, even though I'm the spokesman, I mean, I literally was crying. I said, we did it. Can you believe it? And what do we sell there? All of the vegetables you can imagine, all of the fruits, all of the spices, all of the snacks. You want bathroom tissue? We sell it. We sell everything that a restaurant needs. Restaurants need dishwashing liquid. We sell it. You need your oxtail. You need your chicken, your goat, your mutton, your red snapper, your shrimp, your red herring. We sell it. Your saltfish, your ackee. We sell everything, man. You need your vegetables. You need your tomatoes, your lettuce, your carrots. We sell 2 types of carrots. We sell the MGO and we sell the organic. The organic carrots come from Jamaica. We went to Jamaica last month. We were celebrities. Everybody wanted to know who are these guys that's creating this. Everybody's energized. We were at the shrine of Mr. Garvey. We didn't even have time for the politicians. They came begging us, can I take a picture? Can I take a picture? I looked at the President General. I said, this is race first. I don't have time for this. So I walked away. Then they called us back. I said, okay, we'll take a picture. See, you know, we're not groupies. I mean, Rastafari held the world. That's what this is. I went to IET. The ex-president's wife called me and said, we know you're in town. Can I have an audience with you? So I said, sure, why not? We went there. We spoke to Mrs. Aristide. And she asked me, when you coming back? I said, back in December. This is, ladies and gentlemen, all over we can do this. And get this. Who should we have given the first jobs to? Black Farmers Association. But why didn't we hire them? They don't have the capacity to produce the foods. They've been demolished. So what's our goal? Our goal is to resurrect the Black Farmers Association. We have to raise more money to go and give them the money. I need X, Y, Z of carrots, cabbage, and plantains. That's a sacrifice. Why are we doing it? It's called race first. What do you call it? Simple as that. That's all. You have it in your hand, black man. So you're worried about the self-hatred, how our kids don't respect us. But let me ask you a question. What have we done for our kids? What institutions do we build? I mean, everything we beg and borrow. Everything. I mean, what schools have we built? And then here's the worst part. The schools that do exist, we don't get involved. We're the only people that has an education that benefits by miseducating us and our kids, and we don't get involved. I mean, when you go see the teacher in the parent-teachers meeting, they know the child has a backup. They treat the child differently. How do I know that? I used to be a teacher. Of course I know that. You can already tell which child you can't play with. When you see the dad and the mom come, okay, they're my best friends. When the parent doesn't show up, dead on arrival. Simple as that. I mean, all of this, the only solution is UNIA. We're proving it. Who could have thought black people could have gotten other black people to give them $1 million? Simple as that. And they trust us. Oh, by the way, we're also on the radio every Monday and Tuesday night, 93.5 FM, Irie Jam Radio. Monday and Tuesday night, 8 to 9 p.m., 93.5 FM. It's called Community Focus. That's all we do. Only one purpose, organize our people. Because there's no solution. We're that close to going back to chattel slavery. I mean, look at it. Look at these guys like Bannon and Trump. You know what they stand for? Race first. Well, for them. But their race first obviously necessarily means that they crush us. So, ladies and gentlemen, what's the solution? What is the only solution that can work? What's the only solution that has ever worked? Everybody else is doing it. It's about race first. When you do race first, you see beauty in yourself. You no longer praise a white God. You no longer praise our women that want to look like white women. Nah, you say throw that out, man. Yeah, we ain't got time for that. Race first, you see beauty in yourself. You see God as yourself. You always want to uplift and encourage your children to be strong, to be intelligent. You got to be able to read and write. Every time you see a child, ask them 8 times 8, 9 times 9, 12 times 12, 13 times 13. That encourages them. So, okay, you don't know, I'll help you. How are we going to build a school? How can you build if you can't do math? To do engineering, you got to know math. And here's the last thing I'm going to tell you. Why should we engage in the math and sciences? 2 reasons. Number 1 is, instead of asking ourselves, why can't our kids do math? Why can't our kids read? Why can't they do calculus? That's the wrong question. The question we should be asking ourselves is this: what skills that we would have that would terrorize the other side? That's all you need to ask. And the other thing is, how are you going to overthrow them without being able to do calculations? I mean, to overthrow any system revolves planning, projection, analysis. That's all math and science, and that's based on reading. So, all the other things are important. Reading should be first. You can't read, you can't do anything. Even a math book, you gotta read. After you've mastered the reading, you gotta do the math. And the other thing is, don't just send kids to go to school to get good grades. That's nonsense. The purpose of education is continuity of the species. Everybody must have a role. You will be a librarian. You will be a carpenter. You will be an architect. But everybody has a role. And to get that role, you need to be trained. The training is the schooling. So they're not training us. I mean, all of these kids getting these psychology degrees. I mean, what? I know we're deranged, but it's not going to help you. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Raymond Dugue, and I'm at your service. Thank you. This is how we came up with it, and these are our suppliers. This is the structure. Simple as that. I mean, it's not like I have a ton of money, but if we don't do it, we perish. Those of us that are better off than the others, you have a duty. Because all of our ancestors did that for us to be here. How do you think a guy like me could have attended City College up in Harlem? It was Professor James Smalls and his people in 1968 that overthrew and kidnapped the school. Until then, black people couldn't attend the School of Engineering at City College, a school right in the middle of Harlem. People did sacrifice. So I'm a beneficiary, so you need to support me. Thank you. Bye-bye.